Silliest Death Harry Potter.
Wizards can split their souls, ride dragons, and duel dark lords, and yet half of them still manage to die like clowns slipping on a banana peel. From botched executions to bathroom snakes, this is the roll call of Hogwarts' deepest departures, where the magic was impressive, but the exits were embarrassing. 1. Nearly Headless Nick. This is Sir Nicholas D. Mumsy Porpington. On parchment, that name sounds respectable, aristocratic even. In reality, Hogwarts students only remember him by one name, Nearly Headless Nick. Because in 1492, Death couldn't even get his execution right. Nick's downfall wasn't a grand betrayal or forbidden magic. He tried to fix a noblewoman's teeth. One charm later, she wasn't smiling. She was sprouting tusks. Always believe in yourself, even when life gives you tusks. For that crime against dentistry, Nick got sentenced to death. But instead of a swift swing of the axe, his executioner must have been swinging a club sandwich. It took 45 hacks to even come close. By the end, Nick's head dangled like a door hanging off one rusty hinge. And that's how he entered ghosthood, a bobblehead for eternity. Ghost life should have given him some dignity back, but nope, even in the afterlife, he was rejected. The Headless Hunt, the Ghost World's version of an exclusive fraternity, told him he wasn't headless enough to join. Imagine being laughed at for 5 centuries not because you're dead, but because you're dead wrong. Nick is stuck at Hogwarts forever, floating through walls, wobbling neck first at terrified first years. His death wasn't heroic. It wasn't even tragic. It was an execution so badly botched, it turned into a 500-year-long joke. And if you think that's humiliating, the Dumbledores proved that the only thing deadlier than an axe is a family argument. 2. Ariana Dumbledore. Ariana Dumbledore's story is remembered as a tragedy. The way it happened is ridiculous. She didn't fall to Voldemort or some epic duel. She died because the Dumbledore brothers turned a family argument into a 3-way firefight. It's 1899. Albus is freshly brilliant and drunk on Grindelwald's greater good sermons. Wizard supremacy dressed up in Latin. Aberforth wants him to stay home and look after Ariana, left unstable after a childhood attack. Voices climb, wands come out, the living room becomes a duel. Albus, Aberforth, Grindelwald, spells ricocheting off walls. Ariana, standing nearby, takes a stray curse and drops where she stands. Family is everything. No one ever agrees whose one fired it. Grindelwald bolts, Aberforth breaks Albus's nose at the funeral, Albus never shakes it. The future master strategist of the age couldn't stop a family row from turning fatal. 2 prodigies, 1 future dark wizard, and the only spell that landed was the one nobody meant. Ariana's death was an accident in the middle of chaos. Professor Ben, on the other hand, managed to die in the middle of grading papers. 3. Professor Benz. Professor Cuthbert Benz, Hogwarts' resident history teacher, died the way he lived. Boringly. One evening, he sat down in front of the fire, closed his eyes, and never opened them again. That should have been the end. Instead, the next morning he stood up, left his body in the chair, and walked straight back into the classroom. No one invited him. No one asked him to stay. He just carried on lecturing as if dying was a minor scheduling inconvenience. For the students, nothing changed. His voice was still a monotone, his lectures still endless, and his subject, Goblin Rebellions, still the magical equivalent of watching paint dry. Professor, are you aware you're dead? And now, back to the Treaty of 1612. If anything, death made him worse, because now there was no chance he'd retire. That's the legacy of Benz. Not the nap, but the eternal homework assignment. He didn't notice his own death, but generations of students have been forced to notice him every single day since. Forget Dark Lords and cursed objects. The real horror at Hogwarts was History of Magic at 9 a.m., taught by the man who literally bored himself to death. Benz slept through his own death. Myrtle? She didn't get that luxury. She cried straight into hers. 4. Moaning Myrtle. Myrtle Warren wasn't popular in life. She was teased for her glasses, mocked for her voice, and spent most of her school years crying in toilets. In 1943, the habit finally caught up with her. She stormed into the first-floor girls' bathroom after a fight, locked herself in a stall, and let the tears flow. Unfortunately for Myrtle, Tom Riddle had just opened the Chamber of Secrets. The basilisk slithered through the pipes, burst into the bathroom, and one deadly glare later, Myrtle hit the tiles. Can't a girl cry in peace? Nope. Not in a duel, not defending Hogwarts, not even with witnesses. She died mid-sob in a bathroom stall. And death didn't improve her reputation. Myrtle came back as a ghost, condemned to haunt the same toilets she died in. If Hogwarts had Yelp, her bathroom would be sitting at 1 star. Too haunted, too whiny, giant snake, not advertised. When Harry and friends needed a place to brew Polyjuice potion, they got her constant moaning as background noise. Other ghosts had tragic backstories or impressive exits. Myrtle? She has to explain to eternity that she was taken out by a giant snake while crying on the loo. Even in the afterlife, she's less mysterious specter and more that NPC who spawns in the worst bathroom. Myrtle went out crying in a bathroom. Colin? He went out photobombing a war. 5. Colin Creevey. Colin Creevey loved 2 things, Harry Potter and his camera. He was basically Hogwarts' first paparazzi. Every Quidditch match, every hallway run-in, there he was. Click! Immortalizing Harry like a teen idol on a red carpet. By the time of the Battle of Hogwarts, Colin wasn't even supposed to be there. Too young, sent home. But he snuck back in anyway, armed with nothing more than his camera and a death wish. While veterans blasted curses and giants smashed walls, Collins was lurking around with his lens. Harry, one quick photo before you fight Voldemort? Colin, not now. Okay, I'll get a candid. And that was it. Somewhere in the chaos, he died. No dramatic duel, no headline-worthy showdown, just a boy who turned up to a war he wasn't invited to. Hogwarts' #1 fanboy, taken out not by destiny, but by bad judgment. If Ghost had yearbooks, his caption would read, "Died doing what he loved," being in the background. While Colin died just for showing up, Crabbe went one better. He died for showing off. 6. Vincent Crabbe. Vincent Crabbe wasn't the brains of the Malfoy entourage. He wasn't even the muscle. More like the background grunt, always one step behind Draco. But during the Battle of Hogwarts, he decided it was finally his moment to shine. Inside the Room of Requirement, Crabbe pulled out his big trick, Fiendfire. A cursed fire so dangerous that even seasoned Death Eaters avoided it. Crabbe thought it would make him look terrifying. Instead, it made him look like a guy who brought a flamethrower to a broom closet. Crabbe, don't do anything stupid. Relax, I know what I'm doing. Okay, maybe not. The fire mutated into serpents and monsters, clawing up the walls, devouring centuries of hidden junk. Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Draco sprinted for their lives, while Crabbe froze, realizing he had unleashed a magical apocalypse with no clue how to stop it. The blaze roared higher, snapping jaws of flame closing in, and Crabbe went down with his own spell. Not cut down in a duel, not in some noble sacrifice, just roasted alive by the one bit of dark magic he thought would make him look impressive. For years, he'd been Malfoy's sidekick, sneering on command. His big solo act ended with him barbecued by his own hubris. Even in Voldemort's ranks, that's less fearsome Death Eater and more cautionary tale. And if Crabbe's fiery exit looked dumb, his boss somehow found a way to make dying even dumber. Twice! Voldemort. We all know how Voldemort ultimately died. Wand backfires, Great Hall, Saturday morning cartoon exit. But let's rewind, because this man actually managed to die twice, and the first time might be even funnier. Halloween night 1981. Voldemort storms Godric Hollows, wipes out James and Lily Potter, and turns his wand on baby Harry. Imagine the scene. Bow before your doom! Please, not my baby! Goo goo. Gah! And that was it. The most feared wizard in the world, obliterated by a toddler who couldn't even form words. No duel, no resistance, just a baby on the floor drooling and a dark lord reduced to smoke. Death number 1. But Voldemort didn't learn. He spent the next decade hanging off the back of Quirrell's head like a regrettable tattoo, then years more cobbling together bodies with unicorn blood and snake milk. Finally, he rebuilt himself, carved up his soul, and grabbed the Elder Wand, which brings us to Hogwarts, the final duel. He fired the killing curse. Harry fired Expelliarmus. The Elder Wand refused its thief. The curse ricocheted again. Death number 2. And that was it. Voldemort, the man who thought he had conquered death, managed to get killed twice by his own spell. First by a baby, then by a borrowed wand. The only Dark Lord in history who made dying look like slapstick. Death never cared about wands or Horcruxes. Wizards fell to fire, snakes, even their own hands. In the end, the greatest killer in the wizarding world wasn't dark magic. It was stupidity. And death always gets the last laugh.